Greetings, I'm Melissa and I will guide you through drawing a realistic eye. You can download the outline from my website in the link provided. To begin, shade in the pupil. You want to give it some pressure. I'm also going to shade around the iris. There is a strong light source coming from a large window, so I'm going to add a bit of this area too. When I draw, I tend to always go back to previous areas to add darker shading, add highlights, or more details. I am using a mechanical pencil to help map out the patterns in the iris. As I add darker shading, I stay with the concentric bands surrounding the iris. I will map out everything first and then will slowly build it up. Some artists will dive right into the darks, but doing so can create mistakes, especially for those who are beginners. And since I'm always teaching others, I don't want to give out a bad tip that ends up being more difficult to erase or to have to lighten up. Now I will begin building up the darker values and bringing out the source of light, which is a large window. I tend to blend using various tools such as blending stumps or tortillons. Sometimes a brush or tissue will come in handy too. Tombow Mono Zero erasers are great for adding fine highlights. I make sure I stay with the pattern of the bands that form the color of the iris. I will go back and forth smoothing out shading and lines using a blending tool. You will see how I'm continuing to build up the darks. Whichever blending tool you use is okay. Some may be using a blending stump, as I am, or a tortillon, Q-tip, or brush. While the pupil should be perfectly round, the perimeter may be a bit fuzzy. A mechanical pencil has a very fine tip for fine lines, so I will be using this tool as well. You can see how the iris is starting to take shape. Even after shading the lids or adding eyelashes, I may always go back to do touch-ups, adding more dark values or highlights. The patterns in the iris are rather fascinating and are individually unique. There are actually 3 common types of patterns in an iris. There are eyes that have pigmented rings, which are wide colored bands that wrap around the pupil. There are also patterns of diamond-shaped holes that vary in size called crypts, which I believe this iris may be. Another one is called furrows. These are pale lines that curve around the iris. The primary structures of these patterns are either jewel and flower, and the secondary patterns are stream and shaker. Every person has either of these 2 iris patterns. The secondary pattern modifies the primary iris pattern. So there you have it, some education about the patterns of the iris. When shading the white areas of the eyeball, I will first target the shadowed areas. A kneaded eraser helped to blur the edge with a touch of a tissue. And don't forget the outside corner too. I will add the lines to the corner of the eye and will continue working up the shadows in the eyeball. A tissue can help soften tones and are great for this. Below these lids, we all know the eyeball is round, so we need to insinuate that it appears round and not flat. Another great blending tool is the brush, and why I am showing you all these different blending tools is because they're all great to use in your drawing. The whites of the eyeball are never absolutely white. There can be fine blood vessels, some invisible to the naked eye. They ensure that the eye is adequately lubricated. When adding some blood vessels, use a mechanical pencil and don't give too much pressure. Don't draw straight lines, but rather a bit wavy and curvy. The corner of the eye is known as the tear duct area. The tear duct will carry excess tears away from the surface of the eye. These tears will then travel to the inside of your nose. This explains why your nose will run while crying, or you can taste salt in your mouth from crying or allergies. Pretty cool, eh? I'm adding the thin strip of highlight at the top of the eye, just below the upper lid. I will try to bring this out brighter later on. The corner of the eye has some highlights, so it appears wet. It's important to place the highlight and work around them. Again, I will go back and forth using the pencil and a blending tool to achieve the tones I want to get. Using a filbert type brush, I will help to smooth out the tones, but don't use a brush that is too soft. A filbert brush is an oval shape which is ideal for blending soft edges. To begin, darken the line across the top and lower lid, but don't add too much pressure. I will add a light shading tone on the upper lid. Keep strokes close together. Now to add shadowed areas. I will work these areas up as we build up the tones. And now onto the lower lid to add some light shading. I use a small brush to gently push the shading and smooth out the upper lid. You can also use a tissue if you don't have a brush. I'm going to begin building up the tones using a darker pencil. Using a Tombow Mono Zero Eraser, I'm adding small highlights over the shadowed areas of the lid. Using a kneaded eraser, I'm lightening up the lower end of this area, and a light strip of shading along the lower area of the lid. The upper lid has some shadowed tones along this area as it sits back in the eye socket. Adding a blurred dark line is better than adding a dark solid line. You want it to appear natural and not illustrative. And now to blend it with a blending tool. When shading skin tones, you want it to build up gradually. Holding the pencil back from the tip will help to achieve a light shade with less pressure. As you will see, I'm following the contour direction of the curve of the eye. The lower area of the eye has some crease lines and interesting textures that are always fun to draw. As you will see, I'm shading with following the bottom curve of the eye. I tend to always use a tissue to smooth out skin tones, although at times a blending tool or brush can help too. You'll see how I will go back into previous areas to adjust tonal values. The light source is coming from the right side, so this is why you will see more shadowed areas on the left. A nice blend with the tissue will help smooth down the tones. I always find it fascinating how a flat outline drawing can become so lifelike with how lights and darks are placed. Just as long as you know what shades to add, from very light tones to the darkest black tones, the contrast between these two makes up the realism and brings your subject to life. You will see how I'm very gentle with shading and not adding too much pressure. Let's work up some more shading on the outer corner of the eye. It's really starting to look realistic now. Blending with a tissue over my finger gives me specific control. Never use your fingers to blend, as the natural oils will leave fingerprints on your drawing. While the upper lashes will be going along the strip, be aware for shadowed areas and highlights. Textured areas in the skin is added using the Tombow Mono Zero Eraser and a light value pencil and a mechanical pencil. It's almost as though I'm scumbling here, but I'm actually placing random lines that will cross over each other. Mechanical pencils can leave tiny marks and can get into the smallest nooks and crannies and create fine details. If the lines in the skin's texture are too dark, they appear unrealistic, so be sure not to give too much pressure. I'm adding small lines to the areas over the upper lid as well. Adding freckles or aging spots can be easy to do by lightly shading with a pencil. A dirty blending tool can also be great for creating these too. I'm using gentle pressure as I add the highlights and lighter spots to the skin. Some small lines are added to the lower and upper areas of the skin. Very light blood vessels are added to the lighter side of the eye where the light source is casting over it. Have them light enough to barely see them. You can work on skin tones for hours, but in this case I'm only adding some texture to the shadowed areas. I will use a tortillon to rub the graphite darker into the paper and a tissue to smooth it out. A small clickable eraser is used to add small highlights and spots to the skin. I will be going back and forth using my drawing tools during this stage. The blood vessels on the right side facing the light source are barely visible. Skin textures can ultimately take a long time to do, so I'm being rather quick with it. Notice if there are any highlights along the rim of the bottom lid. Typically there are some. Smooth paper is great for fine details using pencils and erasers. Adding some dark shades will help to boost these areas more. I use a Staedtler Lumograph black pencil for this. Let's begin with drawing the upper eyelashes. I will place a sheet beneath my hand to prevent smudging. I will use a medium-valued pencil to stroke in the eyelashes. Always curve up from the bottom so that you taper off at the end of the hair. And don't forget that some lashes will cross over each other. Lashes will be smaller towards the inner corner and longer in the middle and outer corner. Don't forget the reflections in the iris. As always, I will make some guides of where I want the lashes and go back to make them darker and thicker as I progress. At this stage, you can lighten up lashes, correct some, or make new ones. You will see here how I'm easily correcting a lash with erasing and redrawing it. I can understand how nerve-wracking it can be to draw these. That's why I'm showing you how to add them before making them too dark. You can always go back to add more. Be sure to have your pencil sharp. Now to darken them up. I will speed this up a bit so you don't have to watch me stroke over each lash again. When you get into this angle of the lashes, it will appear as though they're thicker. By adding thicker strokes at the base, this will help to insinuate this. Now I will place some lighter lashes on the bottom. Here's the stage where I will make final touch-ups, which will include using all of my drawing tools. You may or may not need to do this, or you may have other final touch-ups that are different than mine. The light can reflect on the tips of the lashes, so I'm gently making the tips lighter with using a clickable eraser. Pencil erasers will work too. Do you see what I mean about going back to do final touch-ups? I'm adding some Posca highlights. I don't always use this in my drawings as I would leave the highlights to the brightness of the paper. I guess I'm more traditional that way, but always looking for new techniques and tools. If you have enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more free drawing tutorials.